My name is Kara, and if you asked anyone who knew me 10 years ago, they'd say I was the golden child. Straight A student, respectful, driven, and always smiling. My mom used to say I was born with sunlight in my heart. But that light dimmed the day she died. I was just 16 when cancer took her. She was everything to me, my safe place, my biggest cheerleader, and the only person who truly understood me. After the funeral, it felt like someone had pulled the floor out from under my feet, and I was falling with no end in sight. My dad, Henry, wasn't cruel, not at first. He just didn't know how to deal with grief. He buried himself in work and stopped coming home until late at night. When he did, he was quiet, distant. The man who used to tuck me in and kiss my forehead before bed now barely spoke to me. I was grieving too, but there was no space for my pain in our house anymore. It was like my mother took the soul of our family with her when she passed. I tried to hold things together, making dinner, cleaning, keeping my grades up, but nothing I did ever seemed to reach him. Then came Monica. She was everything my mom wasn't, flashy, loud, always needing to be the center of attention. My dad met her at some corporate gala, and within 2 months, she was suddenly spending more time with us. I remember the first night she stayed over. I had made pasta for dinner, the way Mom used to make it, and she took one bite, scrunched her nose, and said, "Ugh, carbs? This is why Americans are always bloated." I tried to laugh it off, but my dad didn't say anything. He just kept eating, nodding at her words like they were pearls of wisdom. At first, I told myself she'd be gone in a few weeks. My dad had dated before, nothing serious. But Monica wasn't like the others. She didn't just want my dad. She wanted everything, his house, his money, his name, and she wanted me out of the picture. It started small. She'd move my mom's things into storage without asking. Family photos disappeared from the hallway. She got rid of Mom's favorite armchair, claiming it was hideous. When I protested, she said I was being dramatic. "You're young, you'll adjust," she said with a fake smile. It's not healthy to live in the past. But I wasn't living in the past, I was trying to hold on to the only parts of my mom that were left. Then came the lies. I overheard her on the phone once, telling someone I was emotionally unstable, that I'd acted out and lashed out violently. I stood frozen in the hallway, hearing her spin this web of fiction, and my stomach turned. The next day, my dad sat me down and asked if I was okay mentally. That was the first time I realized she was poisoning him against me. She told him I skipped school, I didn't. She told him I stole from her, a lie. She even claimed I called her a gold-digging whore, words I never said, though by that point I probably thought them. And my dad believed her. Every single time. I begged him to see what she was doing. "Dad, please. She's trying to turn you against me. You know me. You know I'd never," but he didn't look at me like he knew me. He looked at me like I was a problem he didn't have the energy to fix. "I think it's best if you go live with your aunt for a while," he said one evening, like he was talking about the weather. "Just until things calm down here." I remember staring at him, stunned. "You're sending me away? Because she said something?" "It's not just her, Kara. You've been acting off. Distant. Difficult. I lost Mom." I screamed. "And then I lost you. You've let her erase me from this house." He didn't yell. He didn't even look angry. He just stood up and said, "Go pack." That night, I left with 2 bags and a heart so broken I didn't know how I was still breathing. My aunt, bless her, did her best to comfort me, but it wasn't the same. My own father had chosen a woman he barely knew over his daughter. I kept thinking he'd call. That he'd realize what he'd done. But days turned to weeks, and weeks to months, and the silence grew louder than any apology could ever be. I finished high school quietly, with no visits, no congratulations. I sent him my college acceptance letter. He never replied. I went off to university with a grant and 3 part-time jobs, scraping by while Monica's Instagram showed off luxury vacations and expensive clothes. She married him this summer after my freshman year. I didn't get an invite. But I saw the pictures online. She wore white. My father looked proud. For years, I tried to forget them. I built a life, slowly, painfully. I graduated with honors in business, started working for a tech startup, and eventually created my own small app development company with two close friends. It was modest, but it grew fast. We hit a viral wave with a mental wellness app, and by 27, I was a self-made woman with a thriving company and a penthouse I paid for myself. That's when I got the call. "Kara? It's Janet, your dad's old assistant." I didn't know who else to call. I hadn't heard that name in almost a decade. My heart pounded. "It's about Monica. I think you should know, she's being investigated for fraud. Serious stuff. And, your father's company is in trouble. Bad trouble." I didn't say anything for a long time. "Kara? Are you still there?" I smiled for the first time in years thinking about him. "Yes," I said softly. "I'm here. Tell me everything." Because that was the moment I realized something deep inside me, something quiet and cold, had been waiting for this. My stepmother was about to lose everything, and this time I was going to make sure of it. Janet's voice trembled over the phone, but my mind was sharp. It had been years since I even thought about my father's old company, Westridge Consulting, and even longer since I'd heard anything about Monica. But hearing Janet say Monica's name in the same sentence as fraud was like a hit of pure electricity through my veins. "She funneled money through fake vendors," Janet whispered, like she was afraid Monica might hear through the walls. "Consulting fees, expense accounts, business trips that never happened. She and her friend, some fake advisor, have been siphoning funds for almost 3 years now. And the audit caught it." I leaned against the kitchen counter in my high-rise apartment, the hum of my smart fridge and the city lights behind me a stark contrast to the memory of my teenage self crying in a guest bedroom at my aunt's house. My nails tapped against the marble like a metronome. "Did my father know?" I asked quietly. Janet hesitated. "There's no proof yet, but I think she kept him in the dark. She had access to everything after they married. Remember when she got her self-made co-chair of the board? It was all part of her setup. But now the board wants heads to roll, and Henry's name is on every document." "Good," I said, before I could stop myself. Janet went quiet. "I just thought you should know," she said finally. "You didn't deserve what happened back then. And I think he's finally realizing it." I didn't say thank you. I just said goodbye. After I hung up, I stood in the kitchen for a long time. I thought about Monica's smug smile, the way she touched my dad's arm at dinner, like she owned everything, including him. I thought about my mom's armchair, thrown out like garbage. I thought about my graduation photo. My father never saw it. But most of all, I thought about how I could make this hurt more. I didn't want justice. I didn't want closure. I wanted revenge. I spent the next 3 days pulling together everything I could find. I contacted one of my old professors, now a forensic accountant, and hired him as a consultant. I used a proxy to buy stock in Westbridge's holding company, just enough to attend the next shareholder meeting. My friends asked why I was so quiet, why I seemed so focused all of a sudden. I told them I was revisiting old business. That wasn't a lie. Monica's downfall was already in motion, but I didn't want to just watch her fall, I wanted to control the direction of her crash. I set up a meeting with a reporter from the Wall Street Herald, a woman named Delia who owed me a favor from helping her sister's startup. "I've got something that'll make your front page," I told her. "And trust me, it's going to sell." She listened. She took notes. She verified everything I gave her, then asked me the question I'd been dreading, "Can I use your name?" "No," I said. "Not yet." The article broke the following Monday. "$1 Million Mistress, How Westbridge's Co-Chair Spent Company Funds Like Monopoly Money." It trended in less than an hour. The fallout was instant. Monica tried to deny everything, but the screenshots, receipts, and fake vendor names were too specific to ignore. The board froze her accounts. Her face was all over business blogs and Twitter threads. She deleted her social media within 2 days. And my father? Oh, he finally called. I stared at his name on my phone, Dad, and for a second, I felt 16 again, hoping he'd say, "I'm sorry. I was wrong. Come home." But I wasn't that girl anymore. "Kara," he said when I picked up. His voice was hoarse. "I don't know where else to turn." That hit harder than I expected. "I read the article," I said. "She says it's a mistake," he mumbled. "She says someone set her up." I laughed. "That's funny," I said. "Because you thought I was unstable and dangerous when she said so. No evidence, no questions, just gone. But now you want to believe her?" He went silent. "I made mistakes," he said eventually. "I see that now. I let her come between us." "You didn't let her," I snapped. "You helped her. You were her weapon." He was quiet for a long time. "Kara, I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need help. The company's crashing. We're being audited. I'm facing possible charges unless I prove I wasn't involved." I didn't know what she was doing. "I swear." "Maybe you should have known," I said coldly. "Maybe if you'd spent more time being a father instead of a trophy husband, you wouldn't be in this mess." "I'm begging you," he whispered. I should have hung up. I should have told him to go to hell. But revenge isn't about anger. It's about control. "I'll help," I said finally. "But on one condition." "Anything," he said. "I want Monica gone. Not just out of the house, out of your life. No alimony. No protection. You divorce her and you don't let her talk her way out of this. Or I walk." He didn't even pause. "Done," he said. I had him. Over the next 2 weeks, I took over everything. I contacted the board directly and offered my team's services, under a new shell company name, of course. We cleaned up the books, traced every fake transaction, and forwarded everything to legal counsel. I positioned myself as an outside savior, a faceless consultant with no emotional stake. But I made sure Monica knew. Anonymously, I had her served with a subpoena and a divorce notice on the same day. I included a single line in the envelope, "Remember me? My father moved into a rental condo across town while the house went up for sale. Legal fees were bleeding him dry. He offered to meet me in person. At first, I refused. But curiosity won out. I agreed to lunch. We met at a quiet cafe by the water. He looked older. Smaller. Like the guilt had physically shrunk him. "I don't deserve this," he said quietly. "No," I agreed. "You don't." He looked up at me, his eyes watery. "Can we fix it?" I stirred my coffee. "Maybe," I said. "But it'll be on my timeline. You don't get to ask for love like it's a refund policy. You broke something in me that might never come back." He nodded slowly. "I'm sorry," he said again. This time, I believed him. But belief isn't the same as forgiveness. Monica tried to reach out once. Through an email. It was pathetic, full of fake tears and claims that she was used and just trying to help. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to her attorney and let them bury her in legal responses. Last I heard, she was living with her sister in Arizona, waiting for sentencing. My father stepped down from Westbridge and now works as a private consultant for mid-sized firms. He sends me texts sometimes. I answer every now and then. We're not a family, not yet. But we're not strangers anymore, either. As for me? I'm doing fine. No, scratch that, I'm doing better than fine. I built something real. I turned my pain into purpose, my silence into strategy. I didn't just survive her, I outlived her lies. And when people ask me what happened between me and my father, I tell them the truth: he forgot who his daughter was. But now? Now he remembers. The weirdest part of revenge is that once you finally get it, once your enemy is crawling through the ashes of the life they built on your back, it doesn't feel like fireworks. It's not some cinematic, fist-pumping victory. It's quiet. Like a storm already past. After Monica's name was dragged across every business outlet in the state, after the courts froze her assets, and after my father stood in front of a boardroom full of stone-faced executives and resigned from the company he helped build, I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt clarity. I wasn't the villain, I wasn't unstable. I wasn't ungrateful or dramatic or too emotional. I was the only one who had seen her for what she really was, from the very beginning. And now, finally, they all saw it too. But seeing justice served doesn't mean your scars magically fade. And even as Monica's world burned around her, I found myself spiraling through the memories of what she took from me, not just materially, but emotionally. She stole my father. And that theft wasn't just about his money or the house or even the family company. It was about something much deeper: the years I spent thinking I was the problem. You have no idea how long a lie can rot inside you until you look back and realize it was the foundation you were standing on. I started seeing a therapist. I never told her who I really was or what I'd done to Monica. I said I worked in corporate consulting and had family trauma, enough for her to nod and scribble in her notebook with understanding. And week by week, I unpacked what that woman had done to me, to my mother's legacy, and to the version of myself that believed I needed to earn love by staying quiet. One day, my therapist asked something that stopped me cold. "If your father hadn't married Monica," she said, "who do you think you would have become?" I sat there for a long time. Not the angry, driven, sharp-edged woman I am now, probably. Not someone who has lawyers on speed dial and a curated list of corporate contacts. Not someone who trusts no one until they're proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. But I also wouldn't be this strong. I left that session understanding something important: I didn't just rebuild myself after the fire. I used the ashes to forge armor. Still, some wounds reopen whether you want them to or not. It was a Tuesday when my father called again. I had just finished a meeting when my assistant knocked on my office door with a tight look on her face. "It's your father," she said. "He says it's urgent." I took the call. He sounded breathless. "Kara," he said, "I just found out Monica's trying to settle early. She wants to cut a deal to avoid jail time." "Of course she does," I muttered. "She's allergic to consequences." "She's blaming everything on me," he said. "Claiming she had no authority, that I signed off on every transaction, that she was just following my lead." I closed my eyes. "She's cornered," I said. "And cornered animals lie. Let her talk." "But they might believe her." "Then you fight back." He exhaled slowly. "I don't know if I can. I'm tired, Kara. I've lost everything. The house is gone. The company's gone. Half the family won't return my calls. All I have left is this apartment and you." Those last words weren't manipulative. They weren't laced with guilt. For the first time in years, they sounded real. I paused. "I'll help you," I said. "But I need something in return." "Anything. I want you to give Mom back her name." He didn't understand at first. "I want the scholarship you and Monica renamed after her, changed back. I want her portrait rehung at the Westbridge Foundation. I want her erased legacy returned." There was silence on the other end. Then I heard him sniff. "I'll do it," he said. The next week, I received a package. Inside was the original plaque that used to hang under my mother's oil painting in the foundation's headquarters, in honor of Elizabeth Monroe, founder. Visionary. Beloved. I held it like a relic. Like a bone unearthed from a grave. And that's when I knew the war wasn't just against Monica, it was also about reclaiming everything she tried to take from us. I flew to Connecticut that weekend to attend the reinstatement ceremony at the foundation. It was quiet, low-key, but when they unveiled her portrait again, my heart clenched. She was young in it, maybe 32, wearing her favorite navy dress, with her soft smile and serious eyes. And below it, her name finally rested in gold again. I stood there alone for a long time until my father stepped up beside me. "She would have been proud of you," he said. "She would have hated what you let happen to us," I replied. He nodded. "I know." We stood there like two people holding the same broken photo frame, both of us missing different pieces of the picture. After the ceremony, he asked me to dinner. I almost said no. But then I looked at him, no Monica, no fake smiles, no guilt-tripping. Just a man trying to rebuild something he'd buried. We talked like acquaintances. Then like people with shared history. Then, finally, like family. He told me how Monica had isolated him. How she charmed his business partners, then used their trust to siphon cash. How he didn't notice because he was too busy enjoying the new life she built around him like a fantasy, one where he didn't have to grieve my mom. One where he didn't have to face how much he'd failed. She made it easy not to feel, he admitted. I stared at him. And I made it inconvenient. He flinched. Yeah. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was honesty. Later that night, I got a call from Delia, the reporter. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "Monica just did a phone interview from her lawyer's office. She's blaming everyone, your dad, the board, the auditors." "But the way she said your name, my name?" I interrupted. "She said my name?" "She didn't say it outright, but she mentioned your mother. Claimed your dad still pays emotional debts to a dead woman through her child." "That's you." I didn't get angry. I smiled. Because that meant she was rattled. That meant, even while facing prison time, Monica was still haunted by the girl she once manipulated out of her own home. And if I was still in her head, that meant I'd won more than just headlines, I'd taken up permanent residence in her downfall. The night I watched Monica's televised interview, I didn't feel anger. I felt curiosity. I sat on my couch with a glass of red wine in one hand and a remote in the other, as if I were about to enjoy a suspense thriller, not a PR stunt from the woman who once systematically destroyed my family. She was seated beside her attorney in a sleek beige suit, her hair pulled back, her makeup minimal but camera-ready. She looked polished. Professional. Pitiful. The anchor asked her a softball question about the charges, fraud, embezzlement, and corporate misrepresentation. Monica nodded gravely, clutching her pearls like she was the wounded party. "I made some mistakes," she began, "but I was following the directives of the company. Everything I did was authorized." Then came the twist. "And what about the allegations that you manipulated Mr. Monroe into cutting off his daughter?" the anchor asked. "Many are saying this family dispute goes deeper than money." Monica's eyes shimmered with fake tears. "I tried to help him repair that relationship," she said with a practiced tremble. "But he was so lost in grief over his late wife. He projected his guilt onto his daughter and used me as a scapegoat. I never wanted to come between them." I almost choked on my wine. She painted herself as the martyr, the kind, misunderstood second wife trying to save a broken family. The woman who swooped in after tragedy and was thanked with resentment and betrayal. I turned off the TV before the segment ended. It was clear, Monica was setting the stage for her courtroom defense. She wasn't trying to win the case anymore. She was trying to win public sympathy. So I gave her the opposite. The very next day, I met with Delia, the reporter who had followed the story from the beginning. I handed her a flash drive. Inside were emails, audio clips, and confidential boardroom recordings. I hadn't planned to use them, originally, I'd only gathered that information to build leverage. But now? Now it was personal. Delia looked at me as she scrolled through the files. Her eyes widened at an audio clip where Monica pressured an accountant to backdate fake invoices. Another where she laughed about rewriting the trust documents so the girl doesn't see a dime. Delia didn't say much. She just nodded and said, "This is going to break the internet." And it did. 3 days later, the article dropped, "Stepmother or Snake?" New evidence paints Monica Monroe as the mastermind behind $12 million scheme. The audio went viral. Hashtags exploded. Former colleagues came forward. An ex-employee even started a TikTok series titled #I Worked for Monica, where she recounted toxic office stories, including how Monica once made her cry over a lunch order, and then docked her pay. But while the public devoured Monica's downfall, something unexpected happened. My father showed up at my door. I hadn't given him my new address. He must have gotten it from one of the attorneys. I opened the door with hesitation, bracing myself. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. Beaten. "I saw the article," he said quietly. "I know it was you." I said nothing. I didn't deny it. "I deserved it," he continued. "But Monica, she's unraveling. Her legal team's threatening to withdraw. She's begging me to take her back, to say I pressured her into everything." I crossed my arms. "And will you?" He looked at me like I'd slapped him. "No. God, no. I'm not that man anymore." That caught me off guard. Because the man I knew was that weak. That malleable. That silent when it counted. But something had changed. He stepped inside and held out a manila folder. "I had these drawn up this morning. I want you to read them." I took the folder and opened it. Inside were documents, a formal statement revoking all claims Monica made on behalf of the Monroe family. A proposal to rename our family's foundation in honor of both my mother and me. And at the back, a letter of apology addressed to me. Handwritten. "I know it doesn't fix anything," he said. "But I want to start over. And I want it to be on your terms, not mine." My eyes burned, but I held back tears. For years, I had begged for this man's approval. I had twisted myself into knots trying to prove I was worth his love. And now, after all the destruction, he was here, not to demand forgiveness, but to earn it. Still, I wasn't sure if I could give it. "Not yet. I need time," I said. He nodded. "I'll wait." The trial began a week later. Monica walked into the courthouse with designer sunglasses and an expression that screamed false humility. But when she saw me sitting in the front row, her mask cracked, just for a second. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply held her gaze until she looked away. The prosecution outlined her crimes with brutal precision. They played the audio. Read the emails. Showed bank transfers, altered spreadsheets, even security footage of her shredding documents after hours. Monica's team tried everything: emotional appeals, blame shifting, even dragging my father's name through the mud. But the jury wasn't buying it. Not after hearing her refer to me as the dead wife's brat on tape. By the time closing arguments rolled around, she looked hollowed out. Her lawyer wouldn't meet her eyes. Her supporters had vanished. And on the day of the verdict, as the jury foreman stood up and read the word guilty, I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I just exhaled. Like a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying had finally been lifted from my chest. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Someone asked me how I felt. I said, relieved. That night, I went home and sat alone in the quiet. No wine. No music. Just me and the flickering thoughts of the girl I used to be, the girl who watched her family slip away, who had her bank accounts frozen and her memories sold off like clutter. And then I picked up my phone and called my father. He answered on the second ring. "Kara?" "I read the letter," I said. "I think we should talk." Reconnecting with my father was like learning to walk on a leg you forgot you had. Every movement felt awkward, stiff, uncertain. I wasn't sure what I was stepping into, only that something inside me whispered it was time. We met at a small garden cafe I used to go to with my mom. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I arrived first, ordered black tea, and waited. When he walked in, he looked older, like time had finally caught up with him. There was no expensive suit today, just a worn gray sweater and khakis. He looked human. "Hi, Kara," he said softly as he sat down. I nodded. "Hey." There was a long pause between us. "I don't expect you to just forgive everything," he began, "but I need you to know I've been doing the work. Therapy, soul-searching, whatever you want to call it. I see now what I let happen. I abandoned you because it was easier to let someone else take charge than to face my own guilt." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you." Inside was a check. A big one. Not a bribe, at least not in the obvious sense. It was labeled as reparations. For what was stolen, he'd written in the memo line. I pushed it back to him. "I'm not here for that." He looked up, startled. "I thought you might." "I did," I interrupted. "Once. But that girl died a long time ago. I built something without your money. Without your name. That's the only thing keeping me sane." He nodded, and I could see the guilt knotting in his throat. "Okay. But keep it anyway. For your foundation. Do something good with it." That stopped me. "You knew I started a foundation?" He gave me a small smile. "I've been following you, Kara." Quietly. Every event, every article, every little mention in the paper. I've read it all. I just didn't know how to come back without messing everything up worse than I already had. I didn't know how to feel about that, part stalker, part supportive dad. But I didn't hate it. Not anymore. So, we talked. 4 hours. About Mom. About Monica. About the years lost in the void between us. He admitted how Monica had slowly isolated him, how she played into his insecurities, his grief. How she made herself indispensable while framing me as a threat to their peace. She would cry after every fight between us, he said, eyes glassy. She said she wanted to fix things, but you were too angry, too entitled. I believed her. I needed someone to blame, and she made it easy. I wanted to scream. To shake him. But I didn't. That rage had passed. Now there was only room for mourning. Because what Monica stole wasn't just money or reputation, she stole years. Of love. Of family. Of time we couldn't get back. But I didn't want to live in that grief anymore. I wanted to rebuild. The next few months were slow and fragile. Like rebuilding a home from burned ruins. My father started volunteering with the Monroe Foundation, my foundation. He insisted on starting from the bottom, filing documents and shadowing events. People didn't recognize him at first, which he said he preferred. He came to me with ideas, grants for single mothers, scholarships for young women in STEM. I listened. Approved some. Rejected others. We were learning how to work together, not as parent and child, but as equals. Sometimes we'd sit in my office, late at night, sipping coffee, and talk about the future. One night, he asked, "Do you think your mother would forgive me?" I paused. "I think she'd be proud I didn't turn out like you." It was brutal honesty, but he nodded. "I think you're right." As for Monica, her world kept crumbling. The court sentenced her to 6 years in federal prison, with 3 years supervised release after. She lost her house, her designer wardrobe, her clout. The media forgot her name within months. That's the thing about attention, you can ride the wave when you're on top, but the crash is always waiting. Last I heard, she tried to appeal, blaming mental health issues and manipulation by toxic family dynamics. It didn't work. I never visited. Never wrote. Never thought about her for more than a passing second. Because she didn't matter anymore. I thought the story would end there, neatly wrapped with justice served and bridges rebuilt. But life has a funny way of surprising you. It was a chilly morning in February when my assistant buzzed my office. There's someone here who says she's your stepsister. I froze. I don't have a stepsister, I replied instinctively. She says her name is Claire. Monica's daughter. My heart dropped. Claire. Monica never talked about her daughter much. Always said she was off at boarding school or doing a gap year abroad. I hadn't seen her in years, maybe once when she was still in braces and ballet flats. I told my assistant to let her in. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. Tall, poised, dressed in neutral tones and soft leather boots. She looked like the ghost of someone I never got the chance to know. I'm sorry to come unannounced, she said. I needed to talk to someone who knew the truth. I nodded, unsure where this was going. I'd been living in Switzerland with my dad for the last few years. When the story broke, I couldn't believe it. And when my mom got arrested, she tried to blame you for everything. Said you set her up. I scoffed. Sounds like her. Claire took a deep breath. But I don't believe her. I read the transcripts. I listened to the recordings. She did it to herself. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. I just wanted you to know. I'm not like her. And I'm sorry for what she did. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something unexpected. Closure. I stood and walked over to her. She was trembling. I don't blame you, Claire. You were just a kid. She looked up, shocked. You're not angry? I was, I said. For a long time. But not anymore. I've made peace. Maybe you can too. She nodded slowly. I'd like that. And that's how it ends, or maybe begins again. With second chances. And strange reconciliations. And healing in places I never expected it. My father and I will never have the years we lost. But we have now. And Monica? She has her silence. The woman who thought she could erase me ended up erasing herself. And as for me, I'm still standing. Stronger. Wiser. Whole. She tried to cut me off. But I grew back. And now, I'm blooming. I thought I was done with Monica. After the courtroom silence, the headlines faded, and the lawyers stopped sending emails. I tucked her memory away like an old book I never planned to reread. My life had filled with new meaning, helping women rebuild from manipulation, standing shoulder to shoulder with survivors, and slowly, very slowly, allowing my father back into my world. I had even begun to accept Claire. She started volunteering with the foundation too, quiet, focused, humble. She never brought up her mother. I didn't ask. So, when the letter arrived, it felt like a cold breath on the back of my neck. It was early morning. I was sorting through paperwork at my kitchen table, coffee in one hand, pen in the other. My assistant had dropped off a stack of mail from the office. Most of it was junk or donation receipts. But one envelope stood out, no return address, just my name written in painfully familiar cursive. I stared at it for a long time. My fingers trembled slightly as I opened it. The paper was thick, the ink slightly smudged. But there was no doubt. It was from her. Kara, I've debated writing this for months. Maybe it's selfish of me to send this, but prison gives you a lot of time to think, especially when the people who used to fawn over you won't even take your calls anymore. You probably hate me. You should. I ruined your life, or at least tried to. But that wasn't the whole story. When I married your father, I wasn't after his money. Not at first. I was after protection. I grew up dirt poor, passed between foster homes, always being used or ignored. Your father made me feel safe. He was gentle, naive, easy to mold. But it wasn't until I saw how close he was with you that I started feeling threatened. You were everything I never was, confident, loved, good. And when I saw how much he loved you, I couldn't help but think, what if he figures out I'm not who I pretend to be? What if he leaves me for her? So, I did what I was best at, controlled the narrative. I made you the villain because I didn't know how to stop feeling like one myself. And then it spiraled. Lies became plans. Plans became crimes. And now I sit here in a cold cell with peeling paint, wondering if the girl I destroyed could ever understand the woman I used to be. I don't ask for forgiveness. I wouldn't believe it if you gave it. But I want you to know one thing: I was afraid of you because I knew deep down you would win. You were always stronger than me. You still are. I hope you find peace, even if I never do. Monica. I read it 3 times before folding it and sliding it into the back of a drawer. Not because it broke me, but because it didn't. I didn't feel anger. Or triumph. Or sorrow. I felt still. As if her voice no longer held any weight over me. She was finally, undeniably, irrelevant. Later that week, I told my father about the letter. We were sitting in the garden outside the foundation's office, sipping tea under the late spring sun. He asked, "Do you think she meant it?" I shrugged. "I don't care." He nodded, and for once, didn't push. He just looked out across the roses, quiet. Claire came to me the next day. She had heard about the letter from her dad, and asked, nervously, if she could read it. I hesitated. But then I handed it to her. She sat down in the office chair, read it in silence, and then looked up with tears in her eyes. "She never wrote me anything like this," she whispered. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "I'm not," Claire replied. "She never saw me." "Not really. I think part of her wanted to love people, but the rest of her just didn't know how." We sat there, 2 women raised under the same shadow, finding strange comfort in shared grief. "I want to do more with the foundation," Claire said quietly. "Specifically for girls in the system. Like she was. Like I almost became." I smiled. "Then let's build something in her shadow, but not for her. For the ones she never saw." Months passed. Monica never wrote again. The world moved on, and so did we. The foundation expanded. We opened a second branch in Atlanta, then one in Chicago. Women came forward with stories of survival, of loss, of strength. We gave them space to speak. And listened. My father retired for real this time. He spends his mornings painting now, canvases full of color and chaos, like the insides of a mind finally at peace. And me? I'm not the woman Monica tried to erase anymore. I'm not the girl who begged her father to believe her. I am Cara Monroe. Daughter of a broken man. Stepdaughter of a broken woman. But not broken myself. I rebuilt what they tried to take. And I made it stronger. So no, I don't need revenge anymore. I don't need her apology. I don't need Monica. Because I have myself. And I finally know. That's enough.